He is Rick Tubbs. He joins us right now on KSFO. Good morning, Rick. How you doing? Whoops, Rick.
Oh, can you hear me?
We can hear you now, good man.
Oh, good morning, Brian. It's great to be back with you. How are you?
Well, I just want to say, you may be able to fly a plane, buddy, but you weren't very good at starting up that phone just then.
Well, sorry about that.
No, that's okay.
Technology.
Listen, you are one of the warriors for Congress that Melanie Morgan has been supporting, and I know there are a lot of people who would love to see you become a representative from your district. And we call you a warrior for Congress because you're a man who has served in our military, and you really do know how to fly, don't you?
Yeah, you bet. I've flown the C-17 to Iraq and Afghanistan. I fly the Airbus for one of the major airlines out of San Francisco, the same Airbus that landed in the Potomac out there with Sully, so it's nice to know my airplane floats.
So now, wait, for a living, are you a pilot for a living?
Yes, I've been flying for 25 years, 21 in the Air Force and 11 for that major airline.
Okay, I did not know you were a commercial airline pilot. I thought I knew you, but I did not know that.
Well, I'm full of surprises, Brian, and I've got a lot more, but that being a commercial airline pilot also makes me a union member, which is very important in my district, to where I sit down with these union voters out here and their votes left and right.
And hey, listen, Rick Tubbs, we, Officer Vic and I, we can't step behind this microphone just like you can't step into the cockpit without being a union member. So we're right there with you in that particular regard. George Miller is the guy that represents your district right now. And why don't you describe to people your district so folks will realize, hey, I live in this district where Rick Tubbs is running?
You bet. It's gerrymandered all the way from Vacaville to Richmond. It includes the big cities of Benicia, Vallejo, Martinez, Clayton, Hercules, Pittsburgh, Concord, Bay Point, and a lot of all the surrounding areas in 680 and the 80 corridor. Okay,
so that's a pretty weird-looking district, but again, a lot of good people live out that way.
Oh, you bet.
And I have to tell you, there are a lot of good people who live in that district, but the vast majority, in terms of percentage, are registered as Democrats, correct?
Yeah, it's overwhelmingly Democrat out here, Brian, and that's the wonderful thing about the 2010. As I'm going out and talking to these Democrats, they are as upset as Republicans and independents. They're really showing that we are all Americans in this together. And when I talk to them about the issues of fiscal responsibility, we're spending too much money, do you really like what your majorities in the House and Senate and the President are doing? And they're like, no, we don't. And we're willing to think about voting for somebody else. Tell me more. We tell them more, and we win their vote left and right. It's great.
Wow. Well, that's kind of the old tactic that was really employed by Abraham Lincoln. Go out there and find the undecided voters and tell them why you're the better candidate.
Well, and Brian, when we're doing some internal polling right now, and it's not scientific, although I am a math guy, so it's good. There is a large undecided crowd, and when I say large, I'm talking 40%, and we'll hopefully confirm that with a poll here in the not too distant future. But when you talk about that many people undecided about an 18-term Democrat that's been there for 35 years, that means they don't want to vote for him. They just want to know they can vote for something different that'll make a difference. And that's what we're doing when we're out there campaigning, letting them know that, yeah, Rick Tubbs will make a difference in the right direction.
Rick Tubbs, I got to tell you, I'm glad to hear that every pilot should be a math guy, because if you're not a math guy, we're running out of fuel and we're ditching the plane. So I'm glad to know you understand math. I understand that that's part and parcel to your job. But listen, George Miller completely does not understand math. This is a guy who helped write this health care bill. There is no way in the world that the health care bill is sustainable. George Miller has voted for project after project, tax increase after tax increase, government expansion after government expansion, believing that the money is just going to come from somewhere. He is clearly a guy who is clueless when it comes to math. I'll say it and allow you to respond.
Yep, Brian, I don't know how much time we have this morning because I have so much news to tell you that's exciting. But Tuesday of this week, I sat down with George Miller in a half-hour debate for Contra Costa Public TV, and we talked about health care as one of the issues. And it was amazing to me He went on and on about how his health care bill is wonderful and how it's the best thing that we've done, and I don't know how long. He just was completely behind it, completely clueless, like you said, about the consequences of what his bill did. When I addressed the question, I said, I think health care needed to be reformed, but the first thing I would have went after was the $100 billion in fraud, a quarter of the budget in Medicare every year by criminals bilking the system. And then I would have went after tort reform, because half the procedures, doctors tell me, half the procedures they do on patients are just to satisfy lawyers instead of taking care of the patient. I said I would have made health care cheaper before I would have ever tried to give it to everybody. And he just went off on how his health care bill was needed for to take care of all the uninsured. And it was too short a debate to really get into the issue as deep as we wanted. But on this one bill, and here's George Miller. He tried to say that this health care bill was going to be cheaper. And I said, really? Health care, anything the government does, you're going to say is cheaper? I said, that's an empty promise.
Right.
And then I brought up Medicare as an example, how it's not anywhere near the original projections. And then he accuses me of being against health care. And then I had it by that point. I just said, I'm not. That's not what I said. And then the moderator, Lisa Voderbruggen from Contra Costa Times, cut us off and moved us on. But he's out of touch. He doesn't know what he's doing up there. He thinks he does, but he doesn't realize the consequences.
Sure.
On you and me, the normal person.
I mean, Rick Tubbs, all these things are nice notions. Oh, health care for everybody. Oh, unemployment benefits forever. All of this stuff sounds really great, but it's completely unsustainable. It's pie in the sky. It's nothing that the founders ever intended for this country, because they knew that those schemes don't work.
Right. I mean, you can say yes to everything, but there's always unlimited liabilities. Here's a math thing for you. Unlimited liabilities and limited assets. And people in government are elected representatives. Their job is to prioritize all those liabilities and figure out what is possible and take care of those. And the rest, people need to take care of themselves. The limited government, what the Constitution's all about, and when you have representatives like George Miller that say yes to everything, you're really going to end up with nothing when we fall off that economic cliff.
Wherever there was an opportunity, this is it. Voter sentiment is such that incumbents are not in favor. And George Miller is a guy who's just an institutional Democrat who's clearly out of touch with the people of District 7 in the East Bay. This is a guy who helped write the health care bill. He is Nancy Pelosi in drag as far as I'm concerned. The guy that really needs to represent that district is Rick Tubbs. I've had the opportunity to meet Rick on a couple of occasions. I've met his lovely bride. I've met his family. These are good people. He's a commercial airline pilot. He was in the Air Force for many years as a pilot, and he's on the line with us right now on KSFO. Rick, no doubt about it, this is an uphill battle, but my guess is with opportunities, for example, to debate George Miller and people able to see that debate, they can clearly see that this guy's an empty suit who's out of touch, and you've got some ideas that are time-tested and work every time they're employed.
You bet, Brian. And really that came out on the debate on Tuesday. It was only a half hour, and George Miller, of course, droned on, bombasted, and took up more of the time than he should have. But that is exactly what happened, is he just kept saying the same things over and over again. What I do is right. More government is right. Keep looking to me for your government handouts, and I'll take care of you. And when I talked about government being a referee, not running my life, he just denied that what his bills do is really reach into your lives and try to control it. And we have when I went in there, I mean, I don't get nervous, Brian, because, I've been to combat. I've had a lot of experiences in my life. But I was a little nervous going into this debate, going up to against a 35-year incumbent, one of the, major power levers in the House. But as the debate went on, I just got more and more excited and intense into what was going on. When it was over, I was disappointed. I wanted to follow him into the parking lot and debate some more. And fortunately, we have that opportunity again on September 8th, which will be an hour-long debate where we'll really get to talk about some of these issues and show the contrast between George Miller, more government, more taxes, more debt, Rick Tubbs, less government, something we can sustain, and giving the individual responsibility and freedom to you as Americans that has made us great.
I'm curious, when when George Miller's confronted, for example, with our budget deficit and our national debt, does he right away go back to the well and say, well, it all started under Bush?
I don't think he had the opportunity in this debate because we didn't talk about that until the end. My closing statement really addressed that. But he has in the past. I'm completely expecting him to once again claim that it's Bush's fault because that's his fallback. It's always the Republicans. And so we didn't at this time. He's done it before. I expect him to do it again.
Okay, Rick, if you could just hold through a break here. I want to have folks get an opportunity to see how they can help you, get an idea of what kind of events are coming up. Rick Tubbs is running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District against that long-termer who's just out of touch with the people, George Miller. We'll be back with Rick Tubbs in a moment. By the way, his website, ricktubbsforcongress.com.
The number again is 1-800-595-9122.
You're listening to Brian Sussman on Hot Talk 560 KSFO.
A couple more minutes with Rick Tubbs. He's a patriot. He's a man who is running against George Miller in the 7th District in the East Bay. George Miller, of course, for those of you who don't know, you may know him because of the bridge that's named after him, which I just think is disgusting. But he's the guy that helped write this health care bill that is now law. It's called Obamacare. Rick Tubbs for Congress is the website. Rick, I was thinking about this with you. You're a commercial airline pilot, and this speaks volumes regarding guys like you. If you are elected into the House of Representatives and do a term or 2 or 3 or more, the likelihood of you going back to becoming a commercial pilot in this very competitive environment is probably very slim. So, in other words, by going to Congress, you're pretty much giving up your livelihood.
Yeah, Brian, and that's part of the deal. I mean, when I decided to run, it was January of 2009. Everybody loved the Democrats, Obama and Miller, but I knew it was the right thing to do. And me and my wife talked about it, prayed about it, and we said, you know what? It doesn't matter. This is the right thing to do, and we're going to do it. And that is what makes Americans great, is they do what's right regardless of the consequences. So we're going out there because I believe in what we're doing.
Wow. Well, I believe in what you're doing as well, and I'm asking you right now, one, how can our listeners help you out? Because we're looking for good men and women who actually have a shot to represent us in Washington, D.C. How can folks help you, Rick Tubbs?
You bet. And I want to tell a little story, Brian, because it's so exciting. And when I'm out there raising money, because money helps me get our message out. That's what money's for. It's just kind of necessary in the process. When I'm out there raising money with the grassroots folks, they get it, and they're writing their checks of $50, $100, whatever they can. The big donors, they're shying away because they're intimidated by George Miller. They look at the numbers and the history. They don't grasp the opportunity that we have. They aren't on the ground like me. Everywhere we go, we're winning votes. We had a town hall / fundraiser right next to George Miller's house. I could see his house from where we were on Sunday, and I've got over 80 of his neighbors sitting before me, many of them undecided, listening to me talk, and we won every vote. One gal said, she was in her mid-40s, she said, I have voted for George Miller every time since I was 18 years old. I'm voting for you. So the likelihood of victory as we get out there is great. People don't want the status quo, and George Miller represents the status quo, and I represent something better. So this is our opportunity. If there was ever a chance to beat George Miller, to do something, to really make a difference, this is the time. So, yes, I need to raise some money, and I will raise $20 at a time across the country if I have to. I have no problem with that, and that's what I need this election to do, is to go national. And please, go to the website, ricktubbsforcongress.com. Give me $20, $50, whatever you can do, and we're going to take that and turn it into votes. And we have a huge fundraiser on September 10th with Jackie Gingrich Cushman, who's Newt's daughter. She's coming out to help the cause. We're having people go to the Jelly Belly factory out there. Herm Roland's a great American. He's the owner. And really, just get on board. You may not be in the district, but your money works, and it'll win votes here. Our message is winning.
That's really cool. So Jackie Gingrich, she'll be out there the 10th at the Jelly Belly factory with you, Rick Tubbs. Again, it's Rick Tubbs, Rick Tubbs, Tubbs, ricktubbs4congress.com. Rick, we'll have you on again soon. Thank you very much for spending some time with us this morning.
Thank you, Brian. Looking forward to it.
All right.